button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We like to make sure the tubes are connecting themselves before we dive into the business that we've got to attend to. And boy, oh boy, there is going to be a lot of it because we had some good drops over the weekend. And so before we can just start rambling off, let's make sure it's all connected. And it looks like it is. That's tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about a very pernicious alliance that has taken place between some elements of the government and some elements of big tech and some people who are sort of amorphous, caught in between the two different worlds. It all is going to be revealed for us in Twitter Files 15, which we're going to dive into today. That came out from our good friend over at Twitter, Matt Taibbi. M. Taibbi is where you'll find him. He put out a full thread. It's a big one. So we're going to start here today because there's a little bit of heavy lifting to get through, right? A lot of emails, a lot of text, but it's good. Some people say it might be one of the most consequential Twitter files because it shows you how the whole game was played. We've talked about this here on this channel a long time. One side sort of starts the momentum, starts the cycle, and then the other side grabs the ball, and then they play this game where they just pass the ball one side to the other. And in the meantime, the game that they're playing is manufacturing all of this data that they shove down our throats. So Matt Taibbi detailed it for us. Hamilton 68, which is the group that he really reveals to us, they responded over the weekend, and then Matt Taibbi hit him back with a supplemental. So we've got a lot to dive into on the Twitter files today in our first segment. Then we'll turn our attention over to the Biden documents. Jim Jordan, you see this fellow right here, really got into it with NBC's Chuck Todd, and it was a very fun clip that I want to dissect today. It's only about a minute and 40 seconds or so, but it's a very good example, I think, an illustration of the two sides of this debate. You've got Jim Jordan on one side, who is representing the new Judiciary Committee, the House GOP, and you have Chuck Todd, who is kind of this hysterical lefty Democratic type. And I don't know if he would, take those labels, but those are labels that we are giving to him. And you can almost hear him play devil's advocate, almost screeching that Trump was a criminal monster and Biden was not. And so Jim Jordan gives him an answer, the only real answer you can give in like 90 seconds or so. But we are going to unpack this a bit because I think it's an appropriate time to sort of zoom in on this argument and unpack Trump's presidential power again, take a look at the classification, Presidential Records Act, his claim. We'll take a look at what NARA did. We'll remember all of the different things the FBI did as it pertains to Trump than they did with Biden. And so we'll just unpack all of that. You can see we've got some diagramming that we'll get to today as we go through that. Then we'll turn our attention over to Alina Habba, who we always like to have on the show. We've got Mike Pence. We have Ted Cruz. We've got Senator Cornyn, who's saying that what's going on here in the Congress and what they are not being allowed to see because of the Bidens is a big problem, says it's totally unacceptable. And Manchin is asking a very important question. Who else had access to these materials? We would like to know. In our final segment, we've got five different letters that we're going to go through from our friend Jim Jordan. Now, we're talking a little bit about him in the second segment, but he is on fire right now. He sent out 5 different letters to some very familiar faces on this channel, like this fellow right here, Timothy Thibault, former ex-FBI assistant special agent in charge out of the Washington field office. Remember him? Highly involved in the Trump investigation and so on. He got a letter from our friend Jim Jordan, and guess who else did? Yeah, Nina Jankowicz, the jankiest of all the janks. She got a letter from Jim Jordan as well. She was supposed to be on the Disinformation Governance Board. We're going to listen to her song again. I know, it's in here. I put it in here. I'm sorry to tell you. We're going to listen to it, but we also have some other letters that we'll attend to. One from Viola Garcia, the National School Boards Association president. She got a letter. And then this fella, Chip Slavin, who identifies himself on LinkedIn as an equity champion. You see this here from his LinkedIn profile. He's an equity champion. Now, I don't know what that means. But hopefully he'll explain that to us. Or maybe Jim Jordan will explain it to us as we dive into the letter. So as you can see, my friends, boy, we have a lot to get to today. And if you want to be a part of this program, well, the best place to do that is by heading over to our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have an awesome community over there. We have a lot of fun there. They're chatting away. We got Cool Guy, John Allen, Uncle Shane. He says, is that Chip's pick from 1997? It looks like it, huh? We got MNL Hayes. We've got an awesome community over there. We do morning streams, member-only streams, and cover the headlines and dig into some fun stuff. And I've got a lot of cool projects I'm working on. I can't wait to share with you guys in the coming month. And so come join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, thank you for supporting our sponsors on this program. ForPatriots.com, the best place to get your survival food and your survival gear. You can save 10% off when you use code Robert to purchase all of that goodness. Also, our friends over at Goldco, great way to protect your retirement with gold and silver, IRAs, savings accounts, and so on. Go to robertlikesgold.com to learn more about that. Of course, it's very important to stay healthy. Eat your vegetables, eat your fruits with our friends over at Brickhouse Nutrition. 15% off with code Robert to get your field of greens and other fabulous goodies from Brickhouse. And of course, our law firm, the R&R Law Group, where we help good people charged with crimes in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so if you know anybody who needs help with a criminal charge, that's what we do. 480-787-0394. Free case evaluations. And we're welcoming all of our new members on our different platforms, especially on Locals. Welcome to our Locals friends. All right. All right. And so let's get into a business on the day. Twitter Files 15 from our friend Matt Taibbi drop, and they detail for us a very interesting relationship with this entity called Hamilton 68. You're going to see it's kind of like this think tank with all these very sophisticated elite who are going to guide us through the perils of misinformation and disinformation on Twitter. And in order to accomplish their goals, well, you guessed it, they're going to have to censor the whole planet. Well, let's go in directly to the Twitter files. And as usual, they come from our friend Matt Taibbi at mtaibbi on Twitter. And I'll invite you to go follow him on Twitter and elsewhere. But he starts us off with a video, which is a little bit unusual here. And this is a video that has gotten 5 million views. And so let's cue this up and make sure we can listen in how this very interesting Twitter thread 15 starts.
You and your team, you guys created a website, Hamilton 68.
Yes, my colleagues and I, we tracked Russian accounts.
That's some bullshit.
So they're literally right now, there are Russian bots, according to your website, that are putting this out into the world. Is that correct?
It's bullshit.
You and your
Okay, this guy, you see, they tell us his name is Clint Watts. We'll just break this down. Clint Watts, leader of Hamilton 68. Clint Watts. Okay, we'll put a pin in that name. As the video moves forward, they tell us he's with this organization called Alliance for Securing Democracy. And they told us, a new tool to track Russian disinformation on Twitter. That was published by some blog August 2nd, 2017. Well, what's coming up? Well, we've got elections in 2020. After Trump won in 2016, all of the big tech companies went into panic mode. They said, holy moly, the internet memed this dude into the White House. We can't let that happen again. And so they started to create these little stupid think tanks called Alliance for Securing Democracy. You see here, it's made up of a bunch of people. We'll go through this in a little bit more detail, but look how much information is packed into this one video. Is that Jake Sullivan? Is that Jake Sullivan over there? I'm not even sure if that's him or not. Who is this guy? Is that John Podesta? You're kidding me. Well, what's he doing on? What are those two people doing on this organization? God, I don't know. Well, we'll see. We certainly know John Podesta's on there. Let's see who else is there. And as this video moves forward, they tell us that they tracked Russian accounts. Here is a screenshot from their dashboard, dashboard.securingdemocracy.org, GMF, the Alliance for Securing Democracy. And here they say how to read this dashboard. You know, we're very sophisticated over here. They say the charts and graphs here display hashtags and URLs promoted by Russian-linked influence networks on Twitter. Content is not necessarily produced or created by the Russian operatives, although it's sometimes the case. The network amplifies this Russian disinformation. If you want to read more about our methodology, look here. Here are the top hashtags from Russian terrorists. Syria, NYC terrorist attack. Russia, MAGA. MAGA's in there. You see how that one's in there? Manhattan. NYC strong is a terrorist phrase, and so on. Now, if you look down here at the bottom of this, top topics. What is this word right here? What is that word? Oh, it's down here at the bottom. You can't, oh, yeah, there it is. It's Trump. A top topic is Trump. Oh, you're kidding me. Times mentioned in the last 48 hours. 1026. So very convenient. Trump is the top topic that this weird think tank is out there now censoring. That's going to be very useful the next time they have an election. Let's carry on. So here we have an email now in the second tweet. This comes in on October 3rd, 2017, 6:19 p.m. It's from our friend Yoel Roth. We're very familiar with him. He used to be the head of trust and safety over at Twitter. Elon kept him around for a little bit before he booted him too. This email came in and he is responding. The subject is regarding Hamilton 68 account list. Hamilton 68 account list. Remember that dashboard we looked at? They had a big list of the accounts that were the problematic accounts. Yoel is responding. He says, yes, exactly. He says, I don't know who he's responding to because it's been redacted, but he says, yes, exactly. It's so weird and self-selecting, he says. And they're so unwilling to be transparent and defend their selection that, quote, that I think we just need to call this out on the BS, he says the actual word, that it is. I think we just need to call this out on the BS that it is. What is BS there, Yoel? Oh, that's right. The Hamilton 68 account list. Okay, so in other words, all of those dashboard metrics were referencing a list of accounts that were engaging in Russian activity. Yoel says they are BS. All right, so let's see what happens next. Another email comes in from Yoel. This is regarding the hashtag Schumer shutdown, January 23rd, 2018. And he's copied a couple different entities here. Yoel says, hey, redacted. He says, all right. Unlike hashtag release the memo, they're talking about hashtag Schumer shutdown. He says, unlike the other one, release the memo, which was from that Nunes memo, which turned out to be a big, sort of intelligence op by Shifty Schiff himself. He says, unlike that one, this one is primarily being driven by data from Hamilton 68, that think tank. He says, I'll do another sweep for spam here shortly. But he says, but as of yesterday, Yoel, he says, this looked like the right-leaning hashtag about the shutdown, which only got the label of, quote, Russian because the Hamilton dashboard falsely accuses a bunch of legitimate right-leaning accounts of being Russian bots. How we publicly push back on Hamilton is a bigger question, but I don't think there's anything too noteworthy about this hashtag beyond that. All right. So we've got a group of weirdos who think that they are tech gurus who can be Russian Twitter account bot whisperers. And they're like, oh, we're going to start our own TNT network show. And so they started their alliance and they, started to create their dashboards. Twitter says they are full of crap. 2 emails now. Yoel says they don't know what the heck they're talking about. These are legitimate right-leaning accounts. Another email comes in February now, 2018. Again, Hamilton 68 from Yoel. He says, hey, everybody. He says, we produced an extensive description of these accounts during one of our projects, and we listed them here at this URL. The findings were generally that these accounts are neither strongly Russian nor strongly bots. They're just right-leaning users. That's all. Highlighted, Matt has for us. Virtually any conclusion drawn from it will take conversations in conservative circles on Twitter and accuse them of being Russian. Virtually any conclusion from it will take conversations in conservative circles and accuse them of being Russian, which is exactly what they want to do because they want to silence conservative circles. That's the point. The bot check people use a similarly flawed methodology. Yoel's giving them the 411. He says, look, in terms of substance, this is truly a nothing burger. Nothing burger. It's just a problem of journalists continuing to lean on deeply flawed tools pushed by people looking to capitalize on the bot media frenzy. They're just trying to take advantage of this situation. He says, but to try to allow us to get ahead of some of this Hamilton 68 nonsense, I'm working on our own internal version of it, and you can view it here. Please feel free to take a look. He says, interestingly, there are already some discrepancies between the hashtags that they tout on their site and the ones we're seeing in our own data. Yoel says certain hashtags like hashtag Israel and hashtag Trump appear to be completely blacklisted from the Hamilton dashboard. These and other inconsistencies, coupled with a total lack of transparency from their team, point to a major unmet opportunity to try to educate our comms and government partners about the flaws in tools like Hamilton. Nick blank blank should help advise on that, your friend Yoel. Okay, so in other words, they know that Hamilton 68 is meaningless, but they're having a difficult time communicating that because a lot of their data is inaccessible, right? It's not transparent. So Matt continues in tweet 5. He tells us, these are quotes by Twitter executives about the Hamilton 68, a digital quote dashboard that claimed to track Russian influence and was the source of hundreds, if not thousands, of mainstream print and TV news stories in the Trump years. So you create one think tank that is faking to be this neutral arbiter of the truth, and that entity can set the pretext, can lay the foundation for a bunch of the media to dip their straws into there and just suck the stories out of there. And let's see how this works for us. Here is a screenshot of the website, Alliance for Securing Democracy, about us, our work toolbox in the news. And they have a picture here of old Pooty Poo releasing some red death tweets of blood and murder from his hand, just releasing them into your feeble brain, just wrecking your free thinking capability, decimating your logic and all your tech faculties. Oh man, it sucks when that happens. We can't do anything about it. We're so dumb, you know? Wow. It's a good thing we have them tracking disinformation for us. Otherwise, we might be even dumber than we already are. Golly. He says that this quote dashboard, who ran this? Was it like a tech bro or something? Like some technical guru? Who ran this thing? Matt tells us the dashboard was headed by former FBI. Oh, great. Former FBI counterintelligence official and current MSNBC contributor. Oh, gosh. His name is Clint Watts, and funded by a neoliberal think tank called the Alliance for Securing Democracy. All right, so you know that this is just a disaster ahead of us. The Alliance for Securing Democracy. And only these people can do it. I mean, without them, democracy is going to be insecure. Look at what happened with that podium that one time. So this guy is former FBI, probably good friends with James Baker and Michael Sussman and who knows who else, but they just probably pal around, and you can see they tell us a little bit else about who is on the board. The Alliance for Securing Democracy, so-called, their advisory council includes these people. Neoconservative writer called Bill Kristol, former ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, ex-Hillary for America chief, John Podesta. What is a Hillary Clinton advisor doing on this? And former heads of deputy and heads of the CIA, former heads or deputy heads of the CIA, the NSA, and the Department of Homeland Security, all on this fake think tank. Michael Chertoff, you've got Tuma, you've got David Kramer, Bill Kristol, who is a rabid anti-Trumper, all right? Secretary of Homeland Security, Mike Chertoff. Let's see who else we have. Mike McFaul, Anna Palacio, and John Podesta. Very interesting fellow, that guy. Interesting household over there as well. News outlets for years would use this entity as a pretext. They would say, well, they found all of this truth. And look at all these very estimable people that are on this committee and on this think tank. People like Michael Chertoff, right? DHS. People like John Podesta. He wouldn't lie to you. Bill Kristol. He hates Trump more than we do. So therefore, we can trust all of this material, and they did. News outlets for years cited Watts and Hamilton 68 when they were making their fake claims that Russian bots were, quote, amplifying an endless parade of social media causes. They said there was strikes against Syria in support of Fox News host Laura Ingraham. The campaigns of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. They didn't like Bernie either because he was threatening the power structure. Here's what NBC News glabbed onto. They said one tiny corner of the U.S. government pushes back against Russian disinformation. Polygraph is a part of a small U.S. government effort to counter Russia propaganda machine. The Russians are taking us over, with all of their disinformation. Well, let's see. Because Hamilton apparently didn't have good tabs on them, according to Twitter. Twitter themselves said that all this disinformation was garbage. Russia-linked accounts are tweeting their support of embattled Fox News host Laura Ingraham. The Russians are supporting Laura Ingraham. Here's another one. Politico took this one. The Russian bots are coming. The bipartisan duo is on it. They're going to cross party lines to track down and stop Kremlin propaganda. They're just very happy with their stories. Securing Democracy Dispatch. Where'd this come in from? Oh my goodness, the ASD team. And this is a special edition from the Mueller indictment. Wow, a bunch of very, very, very sophisticated individuals at these think tanks are preparing for us a dispatch for securing democracy. They write, Mueller indicts Russia's internet agency, 13 Russians and 3 other entities for meddling in the 2016 election. Yeah, and what happened to those people? Mueller describes a sweeping years-long multi-million-dollar conspiracy by hundreds of Russians aimed at criticizing Hillary Clinton and supporting Senator Bernie Sanders and Trump, says Bloomberg. This supports the findings of Clint Watts, a senior fellow for the Alliance of Securing Democracy. Mueller describes that. All right, so this is all of their emails. Right, February 20, 2018. They're all just really excited about themselves. Matt continues. He tells us, Hamilton 68 was also the source for stories claiming that Russian bots push terms like the deep state, or hashtags like hashtag fire McMaster, Schumer shutdown, walk away, release the memo, Alabama Senate race, Parkland shooting, and many others. Here's another story from Fast Company. Twitter bots are thriving, and they're more lethal than ever. Political Twitter bots, many with ties to Russia, didn't go away after the election, and experts say they're getting more sophisticated. It's going to be very useful for them. When they need to censor a bunch of their political opponents, this is going to be very convenient. Russian bots are using the hashtag walkaway to try to wound the Dems in the midterms. Is that true? Did the Russian bots actually try to do that? Or were people actually just walking away? But they wanted to blame the bad news on the forever boogeyman, the Russians. David Love wrote that back in 2018. Another one, Russia pushes more deep state hashtags. Those journalists, so-called, from Politico wrote this article. And here's the final one from Mother Jones. Russian propagandists are pushing for Roy Moore to win. Kremlin-linked trolls have also joined Trump and Fox News in targeting the FBI. Okay, so in other words, any legitimate criticism about anything that they don't like, they just throw it right into the Russian propaganda bucket. And that gives them a nice excuse to twist the levers in the big tech companies to silence their political opponents. And we've used the analogy of yard signs. Okay, you know, you have yard signs. It would be illegal to go up and steal somebody's yard sign, right? That would be a theft, right? That would be diminishing their ability to speech. It would be a problem to do that. But online, if you post a tweet, which is like a digital yard sign, and it's your digital free speech on your account, the platforms can just come and remove all of those from you, right? Literally suppress that visibility, suppress those impressions, and do that without any consequence. And they can just blame it all on the Russians. It's very convenient. Taibbi continues. He tells us, the secret ingredient to Hamilton's analytical method, how did they come up with all of these accounts? They wrote the following. They say, our analysis has linked 600 Twitter accounts to Russian influence activities online. This is what they said. Well, what is this tool exactly? They describe the methodology for us. Here's what they say. In Federalist Papers number 68, oh, they're bringing up the Federalist Papers. That's where it came from. How dare they? Alexander Hamilton wrote a Protecting America's Electoral Process. So it's about the election from foreign meddling. Today, we face foreign interference of a type Hamilton couldn't have even have imagined. The Hamilton 68 dashboard, a project with the Alliance for Securing Democracy at the German Marshall Fund of the United States. Wow, that's really official. It seeks to expose the effects of online influence networks and inform the public of themes and content being promoted to Americans through near real-time looking at Russian propaganda and disinformation efforts online. All right? Looks really official. A new tool from Hamilton 68. There's old Pootie Poo again, releasing his tweets of death. What is the dashboard monitoring? They right here in the bottom, they say, the top of the dashboard shows tweets from Russia's overt propaganda outlets in English and a short post discussing the themes of the day. But these disinformation networks also include bots and trolls And our analysis has linked 600 Twitter accounts to Russian influence activities online. Wow, that's amazing. You've got a list of 600 Russian propaganda accounts. It'd be really good to know what those are, right? What is on the list, like who's on the list, so you can do something about that. The automated monitoring updates daily. The top themes will update in the morning. And as we saw previously, one of those most important themes was Trump, right? Trump, Trump, Trump. It's all Trump. They can't stand it. Taibbi continues, he says. Now, Hamilton 68 never released that so-called list, that 600, claiming the following, that the Russians will simply just shut the accounts down. All those reporters and TV personalities making claims about Russian bots, they never even knew what they were talking about. This is a clip from an article. It says, for what it's worth, Rosenberger and Fly, they disclose their methodology on their website, talking about Hamilton 68, and they say that they can't reveal the list of the 600 accounts. If they do, the Russians will just shut them down. Other researchers with whom I've spoken say the tweets and messages found by Hamilton 68 are consistent with what they've seen from Russian-linked accounts. Rosenberger, who spent years with the Obama White House and the State Department, laughs at the idea that she's a neocon plant. Why would anybody think that? Though it is true that their advisory board contains both liberals and former Obama ambassador Mike McFaul, as well as the original neocon, Bill Kristol. Yeah. Why would anybody think that? Well, because there are other neocons on there. And you were in the Obama administration, which basically was the same thing. Twitter executives were in a unique position to recreate Hamilton's list. You're kidding. Wow. Reverse engineering it from the site's requests for Twitter data. Right? So they just looked at all of the inbound requests for data. Like you go to search for something, right? Or an app searches Twitter. You have an application, like it's a Twitter application or whatever, right? There's APIs. So it plugs into the API. It does a search. Twitter said, oh, where's Hamilton plugging into? Oh, it's plugging in right there. Oh, what information are they asking for? Oh, they're doing basic routine searches, like for just like random queries. Okay, well, we can see what they're searching for. Why don't we do the same thing that they're doing and look for the same things they're looking for? Concerned about the deluge of Hamilton-based news stories, they looked into this. They looked at what Hamilton was looking at. Here's what they found. We have a couple emails come flying in. First one, Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017, 5:56 p.m. from Yoel Roth. Yoel says, Eureka! At long last, I've been able to reverse engineer the list of accounts behind the Hamilton 68 dashboard. The securing democracy people have never been willing to release the list to anyone, but Yoel, pretty sharp fella, has cracked the code. He says, here's the full list, and he links it to a Google Docs spreadsheet. Here it is. Here's exactly what they say are the Russian bots. He says, TLDR, too long, didn't read. He writes, all right, well, the dashboard that they have, it includes 648 accounts as opposed to the 600 that they claim. He says the selection of accounts is ... bizarre and seemingly quite arbitrary. They appear to strongly preference pro-Trump accounts, which they use to assert that Russia is expressing a preference for Trump, even though there's not good evidence that any of the accounts they selected are or not actually Russian. Yoel says, let's discuss the strategy for how we want to use this information. I think it can help us refute a lot of the thinking in D.C. based around the dashboard. Okay, so all of the idiots in Washington, they're like, wow, Michael Chertoff's on this committee. What's the name of the committee? Is it like a real one? He says, yeah, it is. It's called Alliance for Securing Democracy. He says, whoa, do they have like a seal and a logo and everything? Yeah. They even have an address. Wow, holy moly. Well, who's on that committee? Michael Chertoff. Yeah, DHS. And who else? Well, John Podesta. Oh my gosh. And who else? The list goes on and on. And so all of the Washington idiots are taking this information and thinking it's real. It's not at all real. Twitter just reverse engineered it and they find out it's not even, they just picked up names that are pro-Trump accounts. That's it. Because the whole thing's a giant intelligence scam. These accounts, they concluded, are neither strongly Russian nor strongly bots. No evidence to support the statement that the dashboard is a finger on the pulse of Russian information ops. Not even true at all. Hardly illuminating a massive influence operation, they say. He goes back and he explains the remainder of these emails. 644 accounts were the total. What was the methodology for reverse engineering the accounts? He says, easy. I found their API key, which is a mysterious art I can't quite describe. And then I looked at which user IDs they were passing as parameters to the user timeline endpoint. That's it. So he could see literally, he just tapped into their data feed. Okay, so he can see exactly what they're looking at. And Yoel Roth is no fan of Donald Trump, right? He's not there trying to like get these guys. These accounts are neither Russian nor even problematic. Yoel says this, February 15th. Hi, everybody. He writes, we produced an extensive description of these accounts, but they are not Russian nor strongly bots, hardly illuminating a massive influence operation. The sample set looks pretty small. It's the most shared domain. It's only being shared 138 times in 48 hours. All right. So these aren't even like big accounts. Only being shared 138 times in 48 hours. The most shared URL 38 times in 48 hours. Right. That is nothing. That's basically nothing. So this entire list of accounts, it's mostly legitimate right-wing Trump supporters. And they're not even, most of them are not even sharing big, not even giant accounts. It's just like a weird list of accounts. In layman terms, Hamilton 68, says Matt, barely had any Russians. All right. In fact, apart from a few RT accounts, it's mostly full of ordinary Americans with regular accounts, Canadians and British as well. It was a scam. Instead of tracking how, quote, Russia influenced American attitudes, Hamilton 68 simply collected a handful of mostly real, mostly American accounts and described their organic conversations as Russian scheming. Twitter immediately recognized these Hamilton-driven news stories. He said, this is a big problem for us, guys. This could implicate us. They said real people need to know that they've been unilaterally labeled Russian stooges without evidence or recourse. Yoel's weighing in on this. He sent this on January 23rd, 2018. 731, he writes, this is a big, messy strategic issue that Nick should weigh in on. He says, short version. Look, I reverse engineered a full list of these accounts that came over from Hamilton. We did a full analysis of them. And the Securing Democracy people's claims are totally bogus. Totally bogus. They don't know that we have the list, though, and they've refused to release it. I'm increasingly of the opinion that this dashboard is actively damaging and promotes polarization and distrust through its shoddy methodology. It's toxic from a partnership standpoint, but my recommendation at this stage is an ultimatum. Either you release the list or we will. It needs to be peer-reviewed. Real people need to know that they've been unilaterally labeled Russian stooges without evidence or recourse. It's a major problem. Hitting the panic button from within the walls of Twitter. Some Twitter execs badly wanted to out Hamilton. After Russians were blamed for hyping the hashtag Parkland shooting, one user wrote the following. February 15th. Says, why can't we just say that we've investigated these accounts and that these people genuinely have these viewpoints, and citing Hamilton 68 is wrong, irresponsible, and biased? Yoel responds, he says, well, the challenge is that they haven't released the account list, and we only have it because I reverse engineered it by looking at their API traffic. So any refutation would require us having to admit having obtained the account list, right? Says if we publish the list, if we out these guys, they're going to know that we hacked their data, basically. But he said, I still want a confrontation. My recommendation is an ultimatum. Release the list or we will. They said, all right, listen. We have to be careful about how much we push back on this entity, okay? Alliance for Securing Democracy. There's a lot of important people on there. Somebody sends an email regarding Hamilton 68 to somebody named Nick Pickles, copying Yoel, February 15, 2018. It says, from a comm standpoint, we're working extensively with reporters off the record and on background to explain the flaws in Hamilton 68 methodology without getting in our full knowledge of it, right? They're saying we're trying to sort of smooth this out. And we're trying to press them to encourage Hamilton 68 to be more transparent with their methodology. So it sounds like they're telling reporters, okay, look, if you're going to write a story about Russian bots and hacking America's elections and all this stuff, and your source is Hamilton 68, it's a bad source. So don't use them. Whether they do or not is up to them, of course. Encourage them, the journalists, to tell Hamilton 68 to be more open about their source. Carlos and others on the policy team have been pushing back similarly with congressional staff, telling Congress wants to believe it too. All of these people want to believe it, right? This is a think tank that has created a message that is extremely useful to all sorts of people in the media, all sorts of politicians. Everybody wants this big, big, bad boogeyman called the Russians to go after and censor all the rest of us in the months leading up and the years leading up to the 2020 election. Yoel or somebody says, until we have our own comparable but high quality analysis to point to publicly, we have to be careful in how much we push back on ASD publicly. Why? Because they are a protected group. This group has been set up to create this narrative. And so Twitter pushing back on them, they're going to get the backhand from guys like Adam Schiff. That came from somebody named Emily Horn, who was a future White House and NSC spokesperson. A lot of people have a lot of interest in making sure this carries on track. Another email came in. This is the future senior advisor to Pete Buttigieg writing. This is Carlos Monje. He sends the following to Nick and Yoel. He says, I'd +1 all the sentiment here. I also have been very frustrated about not calling out Hamilton more publicly, but I understand we have to play a longer game here. Right? They all know it's totally BS, totally nonsense. So Matt says the following. He writes, so look, the legitimate people, as one Twitter exec called them, never found out they'd been used as fodder for mountains of news stories about Russian influence. Because the Twitter files contain the list they've begun finding out. Matt Taibbi reached out to a number of these people. I'm shocked, says Sonia. Lived as a child through a civil war in Lebanon. She said, supposedly in a free world, we are being watched at many levels by what we say online. Yeah, it's true, Sonia. Sonia, is that a Russian name? I'm not sure. Matt says, I've written a book about the U.S. Constitution, says Chicago-based lawyer Dave Shestokas. Dave Shestokas Putin? How I made this list is incredible to me. Look at this guy. Typical Russian terrorist with a little Russian terrorist child on his head. Very convenient. Here, 24, Matt says, when I was growing up, my father told me about the McCarthyite blacklist, says Oregon native Jacob. As a child, it would never have occurred to me that this would come back in force and broadly in this way to undermine the rights we hold dear. Even Twitter executives were stunned to read who was on the list. Policy chief Nick Pickles wrote about British comic called Horborn, Old Horborn, a wind-up merchant. I follow him, and I wouldn't say he's pro-Russian. I can't even remember him tweeting about Russia. What the heck are you guys talking about over here? Nick Pickles says, yeah, this is a pretty weird list. I mean, one of them is a UK guy who is well known as basically a wind-up merchant. I follow him, and I wouldn't say he's pro-Russian. I don't even remember him tweeting about Russia. One is a parody Trump account. Another, a parody Putin account, which I think is based on them quote tweeting pro-Russian media. The oil had the same problem, and you couldn't distinguish them. I'd say the vast majority of these are useful idiots. The idea that accounts with 5, 8, and 12 followers, okay, not even any, they're like just throwaway accounts, man. Somebody create like an alt account. 5, 8, and 12 followers are somehow propaganda gurus. Seems odd too. We'll discuss transparency with them when we meet to see if they think that they should publish the list. Right. Now, this isn't some weird organization of like weirdos that has like, tea around, a dinner table once every month or so. This is a think tank that all of the media for the whole country are plugging into, that all of congressional staff for the whole country are plugging into. And Twitter is saying their list is totally illegitimate. It's not even remotely real. It's not even connected to anything. Matt asks this person, Dennis Michael Lynch. He says, I'm listed as a foreign bot. He's a conservative media figure. As a proud tax-paying citizen, charitable family man, and honest son of a U.S. Marine, I deserve better. We all do, says Dennis. Looks like he's got a podcast. Go subscribe to Dennis Michael Lynch's podcast at Real Dennis Lynch. Shout out to Dennis Lynch. Editor Joe Loria was also angered. You see, this fellow was labeled a Russian terrorist. Many people were. What makes this an important story is the sheer scale of the news footprint left by their digital McCarthyism that came out from Hamilton 68. The quantity of headlines and TV segments dwarfs the impact of individual fabulous like Jason Blair or Stephen Glass. You look at all these. All of these stories. All on a false premise that there was this big Russian account problem because guys like Chertoff and Podesta were saying so. And Bill Kristol, too. Look at all these stories. They had a story to sell. Hamilton 68 was used as a source to assert Russian influence in an astonishing array of news stories, including support for Brett Kavanaugh, even the Devin Nunes memo, the Parkland shooting, manipulation of black voters, attacks on the Mueller investigation. Every time there was a bad story, look, people came out and they were critical of Robert Mueller. What a stupid waste of time, a stupid investigation that was obviously without any merit at all. But people were speaking out against it. Guess what CNBC says? Russia is attempting to influence the investigation in an ongoing attack. Okay, the Democrats say it. They just pull it out anytime they have a problem. Russian. Russian disinformation. Nope, Russian disinformation. Did you wash your hands when you came out of that bathroom? I don't think you did. Russian disinformation. Right, everywhere you turn. Sick. Observers posted this one. Russian propagandists seize Kavanaugh controversy to sow division online. Is it really the Russians, or is it Americans were pretty sick about what the Democrats were doing to him? After Florida school shooting, a Russian bot army pounced, right? Because the Russians came in. And here is the Hamilton 68 dashboard. They say, early in the week, accounts promoted the Blexit movement, encouraging black voters to leave the Democratic Party. Blexit is Russian propaganda, because if you're a black American and you leave the Democratic Party, I mean, that would be insane, right? Why would you ever do that? That's crazy. Only reason would be probably Russian misinformation, Russian disinformation, probably the only reason. And it's a good thing Hamilton 68 out there is there to protect that possibility from happening. Pro-Kremlin accounts also sought to inflame the immigration debate by promoting that a second migrant caravan was heading towards the border. Is that Russian? I mean, there's like several million who've come over now. All right, you get the point of it, right? Whatever stories they don't like, it just turns into Russian disinformation. These stories raised fear in the population. The most insidious of all, they were used to smear people like Tulsi Gabbard, calling them assets, and they drum up sympathy for political causes like Joe Biden's campaign. Here, Russian web trolls boo Biden. They often boost Gabbard, report finds. The Russian web trolls, they boo Biden and they boost Gabbard. So that means if you like Tulsi Gabbard, you're in alignment with Russian web trolls. If you oppose Biden, you're about as equivalent as a Russian web troll. How could you possibly be so disgusting? Russia's propaganda machine discovers a 2020 Democratic candidate in Tulsi Gabbard, right? They're all compromised because they don't like them. Incredibly and ironically, Matt says, these stories were also frequently used as evidence of the spread of fake news. Trump supporters spread the majority of phony news on social media. And you got to do something about that if those Trump supporters are spreading disinfo. However, it was all a lie, says Matt. The illusion of Russian support was created by tracking people like Joe Loria, Sonia, Dave, the people we talked about. Virtually every major American news organization cited these fake tales. Even fact-checking sites like Snopes and PolitiFact said the following. Russia's social media efforts in 2016 were not just false, but inflammatory. Here's another one from Snopes. Trolls, bots, useful idiots attack new committee aimed at exposing Russia propaganda campaigns. All of it was fake. Twitter acknowledged it. But Twitter didn't have the guts to out Hamilton 68 publicly. But they did try to speak to reporters off the records. Here's what one email says, February 16th. Somebody said the following at 1:20. They wrote, All right, I discussed a bit of this today with Carlos. Would love for us to sync early next week about what we can do about Hamilton. Given both the internal and external pressure we're under, I think we need to huddle on the best way forward. Reporters are chafing at our off-the-record cautions on methodology, and the Florida stuff this week really drives home to me that Hamilton 68 is going to keep being fast, sloppy, and their damage won't just be restricted to Russia stuff. Nick, I know this is more your lane. I'm happy to schedule something, but I defer to you. Yes, please. I'll be in Colorado. Schedule any time. What time for Lauren? Perfect. Anyone else from legal should join? For now, I think it's just best that the two of us meet. So Twitter knows, but they can't do anything about it. Reaching out to individual reporters who are covering this to try to shape, but at this point, it's shouting into the void, right? So even Twitter can't put the genie back in the bottle. Everybody has what they want. They have this giant boogeyman that they can use at any turn. Poof, what do you need? Poof, what do you need? Poof, what do you need? Oh, Russia. Perfect. Everything can be Russia. And even when Twitter tries to tell the journalists, stop relying on Hamilton 68, the journalists just say, yeah, but Michael Chertoff. Yeah, but Bill Kristol's over there too. And John Podesta. Roth was offended by the idea that tweets on certain themes suggested subversion. He said, can we talk about how incredibly condescending this is? Here. Somebody writes over to Yoel. To Yoel's comment, they says, I don't think that they can claim all the accounts are clearly Russian or bots. Some of the accounts are clearly Russian, like RT and Sputnik. He says, can we all pause for a moment and acknowledge how incredibly condescending the third bullet point is? If you talk about these themes, you must have been duped by Russian propaganda. Right, that's exactly right. Accounts run by people around the world who amplify pro-Russian themes after being influenced. Yeah, it's really condescending. This is saying that if you sort of agree with something that might be in alignment with Russia, then you're amplifying pro-Russian themes. Even Yoel is saying this is really insane, which is amazing that he would say that too. Again, even Roth, like most Twitter execs, is an ardent Democratic partisan. He saw that this scheme would lead people to assert that any right-leaning content is propagated by Russian bots, which is the whole point of this entire operation. He writes, semi-related, the Hamilton dashboard is once again getting a lot of traction around partisan trends, which is leading people to assert that any right-leaning content is propagated by Russian bots, because Hamilton said so. Nick, I think it may make sense for us to revisit the idea of more actively refuting the dashboard. It's a collection of right-leaning legitimate users that are being used to paint a polarizing and inaccurate picture of a conversation on Twitter. Yoel. January 19th. At least two other researchers and institutions that use similar methodologies were also being cited in news stories. They were also criticized by Twitter in a similar way. MSNBC, Watts, WAPO, Politico, Mother Jones, they did at least 14 Hamilton 68 stories, and the Alliance for Securing Democracy and others, including Dianne Feinstein and others, all refused to comment unless this counts, Matt says. Matt Taibbi tweeted this. He says, a question for all of you people here at the Alliance for Securing Democracy. Are you really going to go no comment on my upcoming story about you guys? I have the list. It's time to come clean. They said, oh, well, you can describe our methodology right here. And so they linked to that. We'll see if we click over there. This was an academic scandal as well. Harvard, Princeton, Temple, NYU, GWU, and other universities promoted Hamilton 68 as a source. Once you have a nice little thing that you can latch onto, they'll do it. Profile of a Russian troll factory. This was published in some journal somewhere. Here's another link, right? All of these universities are linking. Princeton, Shapiro, tracking and reacting to Russian attacks on democracy. And they're all linking back to Hamilton 68. Problem is, it's not true. Perhaps most embarrassingly, elected officials promoted the site, and they invited Hamilton experts to testify. Dianne Feinstein, James Lankford, Richard Blumenthal, Adam Pencilneck Schiff, and Mark Warner were among the offenders. Feinstein put this press release out. All of these people are going to come out and speak, and they're going to talk about Russian bots and trolls surrounding the Release the Memo campaign. They didn't want that memo to come out, so the Russians were behind it. Very convenient. Former FBI agent says follow the dead bodies on the Russian probe. Clint Watts said he fears after speaking with the Intelligence Committee. All fake. The mix, says Matt, of digital McCarthyism and fraud did great damage to American politics and culture. News outlets that don't disavow these stories or that still pay Hamilton vets as analysts shouldn't be trusted. Every subscriber to those outlets should write letters about this issue. For more on the Twitter files, follow all of these journalists. You know them: Barry Weiss, Fang, Schellenberger, and others. Twitter had no input into this story. For more, read more to racket.news. And special thanks to Orr for putting together the video on the top of this thread. One more time, he says, news outlets that don't disavow these stories or that still pay Hamilton vets as analysts shouldn't be trusted. Every subscriber to those outlets should write about the issue. Yeah, and so all of those people you saw at the top of the thread, right? All of these people, the Bill Kristals, the John Podestas, all of the people on these boards, Tumas, David Kramer. This is the analog of the Hunter Biden laptop letter. Remember when the 50 so-called intelligence experts came out and they told us all that, oh, no, that's Russian disinformation. Yeah. This is the same thing, except they just formed a whole committee, right? A whole organization called the Alliance for Saving Democracy that apparently was created to wreck democracy by labeling everyday Americans as Russian bots and then using that fake label to create fake stories that they could spread around Congress and spread around the media in order to win elections. Pretty horrific. Now, we'll see what they said because they did issue that response. Here is a response from Hamilton 68. We're going to go through their response as well as take a look at the addendum from Matt Taibbi, because Matt Taibbi posted an addendum to this as well. So we've got a little bit more work to do. But first, let's talk about our friends over at Goldco, because, you know, my friends, things are scary out there. If you've got an IRA or a 401k or a savings account, you know that it is kind of nuts. Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt has hit a record $30+ trillion. Inflation's the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time before the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. Talk to my friends at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. It's very easy. You can go to robertlikesgold.com. They'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open up a qualifying account at robertlikesgold.com. They are an A+ rated business with a Better Business Bureau, and they're good friends of the program. And you know as well as I do, my friends, I do like gold. So definitely check out Robert Likes Gold and our friends over at Goldco. Thank you for supporting our sponsors. Hamilton 68 now responds. Let's see what they say in reaction to Twitter Files 15. Hamilton is located here. Hamilton 68, the fact sheet for the Alliance for Securing Democracy. Here is their big, long litany of explanation. Let's take a look at what they say. They say that we analyzed a dynamic list of more than 600 Twitter accounts. When was this published? January 27, 2023. Recent reporting on Hamilton disregards the dashboard's published methodology. The original methodology acknowledged that the content within the network is complex and should be understood in a nuanced way, which means it's a baloney. Members of the media, pundits, and even some lawmakers often fail to include appropriate context when using the dashboard's data, and so that they are now trying to correct misconceptions. All right, so they have a whole list of explanations here. The Hamilton 68 Project deceived reporters. Claim, no. It says we engaged with reporters. Of course you did. We'll take conversations in conservative circles and accuse them of being Russian. They say no. That claim is not supported by the data. Almost every day the dashboard was operational. The most used hashtags were focused on these things. All right. So you see, they're explaining the data as best as they can. I think that it's probably all garbage because Twitter has said it's garbage, and they can actually see the data, not the API data. They can see the real data. So Hamilton responds, and then Matt Taibbi responds to Hamilton. Here's what Matt says, January 28th. He writes, Hamilton responded to the Twitter Files thread with a series of claims, including that their site was always intended to be understood as nuanced, that they always maintained witting or unwitting accounts could be on their list, and that, quote, some accounts we tracked are automated bots, some are trolls, and some are real users. They could have also inserted the disclaimer added to the new Hamilton 2.0 page, the new one, which, as a helpful reader noted this morning, includes in red font a blaring warning to all that it would be incorrect to label anyone or anything that appears on their dashboard as being connected to state-backed propaganda. Here's the new warning from Hamilton 68. How to interpret Hamilton 2.0. Hamilton 2.0 displays outputs, blah, blah, blah. It would therefore be incorrect to, without further analysis, label anyone or anything that appears on the dashboard as being connected to state-backed propaganda. That's a big disclaimer on that one, huh? Yeah, wonder where what that was all about. Thank heaven for the Wayback Machine. Here's what they wrote originally when they created their list. The Wayback Machine says, these accounts were selected for their relationship to Russian-sponsored influence and disinformation campaigns, and not because of any domestic political content. We have monitored these data sets for months in order to verify their relevance to Russian disinformation programs targeting the U.S. This will provide a resource for journalists to appropriately identify Russian-sponsored information campaigns. Wow, that's a little bit different than what they just posted here, isn't it? It's a little bit different. First one's like, our data is great. You can trust it. It's very reliable. If we say they're Russian terrorists, they're Russian, okay? Now they're like, oh, it's just for informational purposes. It's just kind of like a phone book that you found from 1984. High on that original page, the Hamilton founders explained they monitored two types of accounts. First section was overt promotion of content. This was for media outlets known to be controlled by the Russian government. The second was content tweeted by bots and trolls. So the Hamilton list, writes Matt, they tracked overt Russian media on the one hand, bots and trolls on the other. But note the difference between that language and the language on Friday. Some accounts we track are automated bots, some are trolls, and some are real users. That Hamilton on Friday was trying to distance itself from its headline is grotesque, even after it was identifying the composition that way from the start. He says, I encourage everyone to read the language. Lastly, I want to point out something that I overlooked. He says, individual accounts were algorithmically selected based on analytic techniques developed by somebody named J.M. Berger to identify the most influential accounts within those networks. The Hamilton 68 team did not individually review or verify all the accounts. Translating, individual accounts were chosen because of a user called Berger, a writer, think tanker whose usual specialty is extremism. So in other words, nobody even looked at the list. Wow. Yeah. So all of it was aggregated, right? And everybody probably wanted plausible deniability. The list was the fruit of more than 3 years of observation of monitoring that nobody even ever looked at. Sound solid? Yes or no? That's Matt Taibbi. That's Twitter Files 15. And so you can see what happened here. We have this roundabout of just round and around we go of these think tanks. We have these organizations that will sort of create themselves. I mean, we saw the same thing with Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele and the Steele dossier. Michael Sussman came up with the story, tried to sell the story to the FBI. Then he went to the media, said the FBI is working on this story. And the FBI, he told the FBI, the media is working on this story. And both sides were playing off one another. Same thing happened here. They just created a think tank that gave them carte blanche to go and take whatever they wanted off the playing board. Everything is Russian disinformation. It's censorship to the highest degree. The media was complicit in it. Big tech knew it was going on and they allowed it to go on. And you can imagine it can't just be this one entity, right? There's got to be gobs of other entities that are doing very similar things. This is the one that got caught because Elon happened to buy the company. What else is like this that exists out there in this ecosystem of politics? We will continue to investigate and uncover. Hopefully you join us. Thank you for liking this video wherever you're watching this. We are covering all of the Twitter files, and so we'll continue to do so. We look forward to having you join us as we continue our journey. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for hitting the like button wherever it is you are watching it. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, let's turn our attention to some other business that we need to attend to. You can see we've got some fun clips now to get into with Jim Jordan, and then we've got some letters to read in our third final segment. But we're turning over to the Biden documents. Jim Jordan versus Chuck Todd on NBC, catching a lot of eyeballs in the Twitterverse. We're going to go through the clip in detail. It's only 1 minute and 40-something seconds, but we're going to break it down because there's kind of a lot of screeching going on out of Chuck Todd's mouth. He is repeating a lot of the same talking points that many Democrats have said, that Trump is so much more of a monster than Joe Biden is because of things like obstruction and so on. We're going to talk about all of those different caveats in the argument. Before we look at what Alina Habba has to say, Mike Pence takes responsibility. We check in with other people in Congress, in particular the Senate, Ted Cruz, John Cornyn, and Senator Manchin, who wonders who else had access to the Biden documents. But this debate has been going on for a long time. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Trump had his house raided. He had his documents splayed all over the floor. He had legal claims to the documents. And we say Biden didn't have any of that stuff. And he had a lot sort of a easier time when interfacing with the National Archives and the DOJ and the FBI. And so Chuck Todd is going to be really taking it to Jim Jordan. Chuck Todd tells Jim Jordan he's dead wrong. They're not equal at all. What happened with Joe Biden was very different than what Donald Trump did because Joe Biden's cooperative.
You keep talking about a raid, but you keep talking about this raid on Donald Trump. The amount of time, there was 9 months between the initial action that the archives made for a request of documents before they even turned it over to the Justice Department. The subpoena was issued 60 days before they actually executed the subpoena. And more importantly, the only time the public found out about it is because Donald Trump told the public about it. This was not some sort of, you paint it as a picture of the FBI did this, and this within hours of each other, when it was actually a year and a half of Donald Trump not complying with any of the requests from National Archives. A year and a half.
We're going to break all that down, certainly, in a minute. But you can see all of these different claims that Chuck Todd is making. We'll go through them one by one in a minute.
This is not some sort of proof that somehow that they've weaponized and playing politics over here.
They raided Trump's home. They haven't raided Biden's home.
Because Biden didn't defy a subpoena, Congressman. He defied a subpoena. By the way, he had 60 days to comply with the subpoena before they actually executed
President Trump had documents locked in a room with Secret Service protecting them. President Biden had documents in his garage and in a think tank that was funded by the Chinese. I think there's a difference. President Trump was the only guy who was actually president.
You talk about that. You're worried about the Chinese and Hunter Biden.
No, I'm just saying.
Are
I think
you
there's
worried
a
about the
difference.
Chinese and Donald
They
Trump?
They took pictures of.
Are you at all worried about that?
No, I'm not. But they took pictures of the documents at Trump's house. They took no pictures of documents. In fact, it's not just me who would like to know what went on here. Senator Warner said it last week. He would like to get a briefing. He wants to see the documents.
No,
and guess what? The FBI is saying no, but they took pictures of the folders in Trump's home.
The issue is not whether what Joe Biden did.
No, the issue is equal treatment under the law. That's the issue.
No, the issue is treatment under the law. You do not seem to ever see the same conspiratorial problems when it's a Republican.
Oh, gosh. So, okay, let's go through this in detail. Kind of a ridiculous clip there, right? And you ask yourself, does Chuck Todd do that for the other side? Like, has he ever argued that passionately against a Democrat? Does he ever talk like that to a Democrat about with that much, type of a demeanor? I'm not real sure, but that is an interesting exchange. And so let's go through it in detail. Now, some of the claims that you'll see in this story is Trump did certain things that Joe Biden didn't do. Guess what? That's true. Why? Because Trump was president. Joe Biden was not president. Joe Biden was the vice president and separately a senator. Okay, a senator, which is a whole different category. We're going to hear Manchin and others will explain this to us, but there is a structure where you have sort of 8 people at the top who get access to classified materials. Most senators are not in that upper echelon of 8, right? It's the president, it's the vice president, it is the Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader, some other people in the cabinet, right? It's a very, very tight circle of people who get access to those materials. Joe Biden was a senator, not privy to that inner circle in that top 8. And he had documents from that era as well. So when you step back on this for a minute, what Joe Biden did is actually dramatically worse than what Trump did just by virtue of his rank. Okay, alone. That's it. So we can just sort of take that out. And if you say Trump is a president, right, or a former president, when all of this happened, he had several different powers. One, declassification. We've talked about that. You might disagree with it. You might say he can't declassify that, or he should fill out the form from NARA, right? Or he should go do something and fill, my library book has been appropriately checked out now. You can say that the mechanics of it weren't done appropriately. That's fine. But Joe Biden didn't even have this mechanic there, Chuck Todd. He also didn't have any ability to declassify or to label these documents instead of declassifying them personal records versus presidential records. We've covered that case at length here. Judge Amy Berman, I think, from the D.C. Circuit Court, issued the Clinton sock drawer ruling. If the president has to check in with some bureaucrat at some other agency about what is personal, what is presidential, who really runs stuff? The president or the bureaucrat who gets to tell the president what is what? That's the whole point here. All of that applies also to Trump as well. Trump made legal claims to the documents. Biden never did. Trump said, those are mine. They're here. They're secured. They're in Mar-a-Lago. You know where they are. I know where they are. End of story. At least there's a claim being made. Joe Biden wasn't supposed to have the documents at all. You could argue that Trump wasn't supposed to have the documents, but at least you knew where they were. Joe's, you didn't even know they were there for how long they were there. NARA also monitored Trump's skiff. We've talked about this. FBI agents were down there. Trump popped his head in when they showed up and he said, hello, everybody. How you guys doing? So that's just the power differential there. Now, Chuck Todd also made this stupid argument. He said, well, Trump publicized it. We didn't do it. Well, of course, Trump publicized it because the FBI raided his residence. The Justice Department would love for a lot of this stuff to stay under the radar, right? Is what they say. That's the argument. Well, they wanted to keep it all under the radar because that's what they did with Joe Biden. They didn't announce it. It leaked to CBS, and that's how it all became public. And they say, well, Trump made this known. And Trump did make it known because that's really the only way you can defend against a government that operates in the dark of night. It's to expose it all. So the fact that he is making it known, making it public, it shouldn't go against him at all. In fact, it's a great thing that he did that. Otherwise, we would not have known about this disgusting behavior from the Justice Department. And on that point, the FBI and the DOJ, they are not keeping things under wrap there, Chucky. They are instead leaking like sieves. We covered many stories after the original raid on Mar-a-Lago where they were leaking the documents out, leaking photographs, leaking stories to the media, one after another about the contents of the documents, allegedly. So he talks about conspiracies as well. All these conspiracies show up when it's the Trump people criticizing the Biden people. There are conspiracies here. Well, what about your side's conspiracies before we get to ours? Back when Trump was facing this, remember all of these stories that came out, one right after the other about the nuclear codes, the list goes on and on. Here was one from NBC itself. FBI found nuclear document at Mar-a-Lago, reported by NBC News, where Chuck Todd works. FBI agents found, quote, a document, whatever it is. It's talking about nuclear capabilities at Trump's Mar-a-Lago raid, according to some secret person somewhere. NBC News says not, whatever. Here's another one. Did Trump really bring nuclear secrets at Mar-a-Lago? This comes over from Rachel Maddow over at MSNBC. Another one. Trump says report of nuclear weapons at Mar-a-Lago is not right. But an NBC News source says it's connected back to ex-special counsel Robert Mueller's probe, right? On and on and on. So it was conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory with Trump. He was selling the secrets to the Saudis. He was getting in bed with them to promote golf deals, whatever. He's Putin's sock puppet. The list goes on and on. So Chuck Todd now wants to make it about the right's conspiracy theories when they were the people doing cartwheels and going hysterical over this stuff. And my last point on this before we move on is that Biden literally obstructed the Department of Justice, Chuck. Literally. We've talked about this many, many times. His lawyers were rummaging around through Biden's drawers to try to find all of these documents. They got a letter in mid-November from the DOJ. Assigned prosecutor John Lausch said, stop searching for the documents. They didn't stop searching for the documents. They found a whole additional batch on 12/20. DOJ said, stop looking for documents. They kept looking for documents and found more. At that moment, that was obstruction. That was in violation of a very specific request from the DOJ. And the DOJ didn't leak photos And they didn't raid any other residences. Nothing has happened as a result of any of this. So Chuck Todd can sit there and he can go hysterical and he can say, well, it's Trump's fault that he publicized it. He had to publicize it. And you guys raided it and then leaked every single detail to the media. And it's not happening in Joe Biden's case at all. And in fact, they have outright obstructed the investigation. No consequences at all. So Chuck Todd and the left will continue to, try to have it both ways. It's obviously dishonest and anybody can see it for what it is. Now, Trump is facing some additional questions, right? He's got a number of different open legal battles that he is waging. But the good news is he's winning. Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, says that Donald Trump is winning his lawsuits. And that's very good news. He's actually, showing up in court and things are going well for him. And so we're going to see what she has to say about Trump's success in a minute, right after we talk about our friends over at Brickhouse Nutrition. Because before we listen to Alina Habba, we got to make sure we've got some nutrients. Here we're talking about Brickhouse Nutrition because, my friends, there's been a lot of time that has passed since the pandemic started and since the pandemic, we're transitioning, whatever, it's over, whatever it is. The point is, holidays have come and gone. We're all a little bit, could get in a little shape a little bit better. I know I could. And so you probably have seen a lot of these ads for weight loss diets and pills and all sorts of fad diets and so on and so forth. And I know they can be frustrating. You've been there, you've done that, they don't work. But there's new solutions that can work. Like eating right, eating healthy, eating well, eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. If you eat well, you'll have more energy, life will be good, and you can imagine the weight and will just fall right off. And so now you can go over to our friends and at Brickhouse Nutrition and get your Field of Greens superfood. Science-backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. It's going to help you burn calories, fast forward your metabolism, make you feel healthier, and have more energy. You're going to look great. You're going to feel healthier. When you go to your doctor next time, your doctor's going to say, you look incredible. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. You look great. So let's get you started. Why don't you go over to brickhousenutrition.com and search for Field of Greens. You can see the product right here. It's going to make you feel energetic and just completely vibrant. Use code Robert to save 15% off your first purchase at fieldofgreens.com or brickhousenutrition.com. Get your superfood, get your Field of Greens, and start feeling better today. All right, and so let's go back over to Alina Habba. Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, says Trump is actually winning. He's facing a lot of legal battles in different places around the country, but when all is said and done, he is coming out on top.
From the legal perspective and somebody who is related and intimately involved in his legal cases, I would just like to say that when people bring cases against him, which worries a lot of people, when you have those, but they're not within merit, there are systems in place, even when you have crooked judges, appellate division, et cetera. And we've been winning. They're not publicized. They're not going to be. But I invite, one time, I'll invite people to ask me questions directly next time I'm on with you. But I am happy to, because I know that's something people worry about. But I have to tell you, everything is going to be fine. He is incredibly bright. He always has been, and he's always been by the books. So I will see you all in 2024. But I'm really proud to be working for somebody like President Trump, and I hope I'm in it for the long haul. It would be an honor.
Right on, Alina Habba. All right, so we always like to have Alina Habba on the show. Yeah. Shout out to K Bean. What's up, K Bean? Good to see K Bean in the chat with the excellent comment on that. I don't disagree, K Bean. I don't disagree with that at all. Here, this one comes in. Now, let's turn our attention over to Mike Pence. Mike Pence is also responding. Mike Pence has had his own little document dilemma pop up, but we read through Mike Pence's lawyer's statement when he dealt with all of this stuff, and it was basically by the book. It was outstanding. This is a clip from Mike Pence, who's basically accepting total responsibility for all of the document problems that he has also found himself in.
Now, while I was not aware that those classified documents were in our personal residence, let me be clear. Those classified documents should not have been in my personal residence. Mistakes were made. And I take full responsibility.
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty strong statement from Pence. Mistakes made, full responsibility was taken, should not have been there, right? If Joe Biden had come out and said anything quite like that, this whole thing might have been done and over a long time ago. But that is not what happened. Instead, they covered it up and they lied to us about all of it, about additional batches popping out with Karine Jean-Pierre and others time and time again. So you can see two different ways to approach it. I think Mike Pence, right, his story is going to be dealt with and over. And I think a lot of the different Congress people are going to give him a pass on it. But Biden's is going to linger around for quite some time, and we'll, of course, continue to follow. Now, as we turn our attention over to the Senate side, let's listen in and see what they have to say about this. One of the big questions about Biden was about the Senate records, because when he was vice president, you get access to a higher level of records, a little bit more access than you are when you are just a lowly senator, one of 100. Now you're one of one, right? You're the vice president. And so Ted Cruz has, much to his chagrin, never made it up past that Senate level. He really wants to, vice president or president, but he's been a senator for a long time and he knows it's difficult to get documents out of SCIFs. There are rules, there are regulations. You don't just waltz in and out with these documents. So how the heck did Joe Biden get him in the first place?
The fact that he had documents from his Senate tenure, I have to admit, is baffling. I've been in the Senate 10 years. I can state to a metaphysical certainty there are no classified documents at my home. How do I know that? Because I've read classified documents in only one place. It is in the SCIF, which is a secure location in the basement of the Capitol. You go down and down and down the stairs. The reporters follow you as you're going, and they stop at the door. They're not allowed to go any further in. You go through a whole series of doors. It's almost like the opening of Get Smart, walking through a whole series of doors. And then you go, there's a police officer, and you check in any electronics you have. You give them your cell phone, you give them your AirPods, you give them your Fitbit. You have no electronics at all. You go through a giant secure door, a second secure door, and you sign out any documents you're going to read, and you read them in that locked room. Right. And then you give them back the documents and you sign them back in, which means if you have them, I don't know how you get them short of. You remember when Bill Clinton was president,
yes.
His national security advisor, Sandy Berger, who literally took classified documents from a SCIF, stuffed them down his underwear because he wanted to smuggle them out, and he wasn't very good at it. He got caught. I don't know if Joe Biden did that, but I have no idea how he got classified documents out of that SCIF. I don't know any other senator who's ever done that.
Diapers.
Well, wow.
Diapers. Was he wearing diapers back then in the Senate years? I don't know. It's probably been a while. But the point is, it is a good question. If it really is like that, I've never been in a SCIF as a senator. What it looks like in there, it sounds like a vault, a fortress. So Joe Biden just waltzes in and waltzes right back out with these documents. How'd they get out of there? Very, very curious. Now, Ted Cruz is not alone. We've got Senator Cornyn, and we're also going to check in with Senator Manchin and see what they have to say about this. But a big part of what we've talked about here was the lack of access. The Biden administration really does not want to talk about these confidential documents at all. They have done everything they can to keep it separated. Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't even have really apparently any information at all. Like literally, according to her, she says that it's all going over to the White House counsel's office for anything personal, anything criminal goes over to the DOJ. So all of these different limitations on who knows what and how. But there's one key committee that's supposed to basically have access to almost all of it. It's the Intelligence Committee. We've talked about the House Intelligence Committee here, which is the big battle between Schiff and Stinky Swalwell. They got booted off there, and McCarthy appointed new people. But also in the Senate, we have an Intelligence Committee, and it's a very important one, and they're supposed to have oversight over the intelligence. Now we've got a situation where Trump allegedly has classified documents. Biden does too. So does Pence. What else is out there? Don't the senators need to know what is going on?
Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn is a member of the Intelligence Committee, and he joins us now. Senator, it looks like the Intelligence Committee is going to get a little bit of satisfaction. The Assistant Attorney General, Carlos Uriarte, in a letter to Senators Warner and Rubio saying, we are working with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to support the provision of information that will satisfy the committee's responsibilities without harming the ongoing special counsel investigations.
Yeah, so Congress, right, has been demanding letters, and now this is the response back from the DOJ. DOJ says, well, we have an ongoing investigation, which is very convenient. That means they can continue to use that indefinitely.
From what you know, Jay is trying to facilitate here, is that satisfactory? Well, this should have been the initial posture of the Department of Justice. It's completely unacceptable, as Senator Warner, Senator Rubio pointed out, for the Biden administration saying we're going to block access to information about classified information that involves the Biden Justice Department, or excuse me, involves the Biden presidency. So this is a little better, but frankly, it's not going to be acceptable until we get access to all the classified materials. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence regularly reviews classified documents. We don't take them home. We don't leave them in our garage. We leave them in secure facilities, and we don't talk about them. So I believe we can be trusted to get access to this information to assess its national security consequences. We don't care about the investigation. That's up to the Department of Justice. But what we do care about American national security and what these documents might reveal. You're on the same page as Senators Rubio and Warner, who want to see the actual documents themselves.
Yeah, we played that clip last week. They were very frustrated, and this was a bipartisan frustration because they're asking the same questions that we are. First of all, how did Joe Biden get those documents? Why did they leave the SCIF? If they left the SCIF, is it the reason they left the SCIF because they were inconsequential documents or because they were consequential documents? Was it a mistake that these little Post-it notes got stuck to the bottom of Joe Biden's shoe? Or did these things involve Ukraine and Hunter needed them in order to facilitate his business dealings there? And if that is the case, or conversely, right? Let's say it's Trump. Trump was sending, a fax over to the Saudis saying, yeah, for $1 billion, I'll put a golf club, wherever you want one or whatever. If all of that's going on, we all want to know about it. And so does Congress.
Warner saying, quote, we have a right as not only members of the Intelligence Committee, but as part of the leadership to review virtually every classified document, part of the so-called Gang of Eight. The DOJ is indicating, though, that they're not about to give up the actual Trump and Biden documents because they're part of an ongoing investigation. What do you?
Yeah, always, right? And that's part of the strategy, right? That's the force field. As soon as Trump declared, boom, I'm running for office now. Oh, man, you're kidding me. We better actually have a special counsel now so that we don't have to give you anything for another couple of years. Because if we show you what we actually got, you're going to see it's not the nuclear codes. It's not these ultra high, top secret classified intelligence briefings. These are just stupid mementos. And it's all much ado about nothing.
Well, ordinarily, you would not, to maintain the integrity of a criminal investigation, you would want to keep it confidential, and we understand that if it involves a private person, but this involves much more than just a private person.
It's a sitting president.
Investigation that affects their jeopardy or not. This has national security implications. If you can imagine a scenario where some of this classified materials would reveal what an adversary may or may not do in the near term, and this is something that the policymakers, we as the members of Congress, would not get access to because the Department of Justice locked it down for 2 years while they completed their investigation.
Right, 2 years.
You can see what a danger that might present to national security. So this is unacceptable. Now we'll see whether Department of Justice will be forthcoming enough, but I don't believe it will be acceptable to do anything less than get full access to all the classified documents. Here's what your colleague from Florida, Senator Marco Rubio, said about that point. Listen here.
We played this last week.
I don't know how congressional oversight on the documents, actually knowing what they are, in any way impedes an investigation.
Don't they trust the senators? Okay, so the DOJ says, well, if we show Marco Rubio and Mark Warner these documents, I guess maybe they'll leak it. I guess, what they think they're Adam Schiff or something?
These are probably materials we already have access to. We just don't know which ones they are.
Well, why do you believe, Senator, it is imperative for the Intelligence Committee there in the Senate to have access to the actual documents and not just be briefed on them? Well, after the Church Committee conducted investigations into abuses of the intelligence gathering authority, the Congress created oversight committees, both in the House and the Senate, to provide an extra layer of protection to the American people to make sure that these tools were not misused. And so we do have enhanced insight into these documents. I read classified documents on at least a weekly basis, and we have briefings directly from the people collecting that intelligence as part of our oversight responsibilities. But we have a constitutional responsibility more than anything else as a co-equal branch of government concerned about the safety and security of the United States. That cannot be trumped by the private interests of President Biden or any other single individual in an investigation into whether they mishandled those documents or not.
Yeah, and we don't take their word for it. We don't trust their summaries. We don't just say, oh, well, Karine Jean-Pierre said that they're handling it appropriately, so I guess it's handled appropriately. Or Ian Sams, or any of the Bob Bowers, right? Any of these White House lawyers, and Merrick Garland, and the rest of, Lisa Monaco, and Lausch, and Robert Hur, and all of these people at the DOJ. We don't trust them. That's why. We don't want their summaries or their promises that this is all done by the book. Nobody trusts them for a minute. That's why we want to see what the documents are. So we'll see if Senator Cornyn gets it. Now, it's not just the Republicans who are upset about this. Senator Manchin is also raising the red flag. Manchin asks a very important question. Who else had access to the Biden documents?
On the classified documents, the president has said he has no regrets about how they've handled that since then. You've said that you do believe he should have a lot of regrets about how it's been handled.
Sure, you should have regrets on that. However it happened, I don't think anything was intentional. And now we're finding out whoever had access. The top, there's a top 8 in this, in our government that get classified information a little differently than the rest of us. We usually go down in a skiff. And all the senators and congresspeople have to go into that skiff. And there is no way in the world that we're able to take that out of that skiff, which is a secured area.
No way.
Now, president, vice president, and those are having delivered to them, whether it be at the White House or be at their office. I just say there has to be better checks and balances on this. But now we find that Vice President Pence, both of our presidents, former President Trump and now President, everybody should have regrets because it can get into the wrong hands. And classified documents are truly classified. Top secret is absolutely top secret, and it's something that could harm our defense of our country and basically the people who were able to get the information that we need to make sure that we're defending our country properly.
The president has said he takes classified documents seriously, but does it seem that way to you?
No.
It seems that basically we have no checks and balances when it comes to that level. Okay, and how
didn't want to answer that
happened.
question, but
I know he takes it seriously when he reads them. He gets briefed every morning, and basically he's been involved for so many years that he has been at the skiff as much as we have been at the skiff, seeing what goes on. And they always say, are you clean when you go in? Take all your electronics off. When you're coming out there saying, are you clean? You have anything on you?
So you're basically saying it's a different standard that applies to you and some other senators than it applies to those on the Intelligence Committee or maybe the president
Well,
and
there's
vice
eight.
president?
There's 8. You have the Intelligence Committee, and you have basically the Speaker, and you have the majority and minority leaders. So you have the 8 and the President and Vice President. And they're exposed a little differently, yes.
Are you worried that this casts a cloud over the expected 2024 announcement from President Biden?
Well, every day something new comes out and somebody else has got it, and they're finding him. I think what they ought to do is find out how this happened. How would it ever happen? Who boxed up the materials? Who would ever have the materials basically in the same as my papers and when I clear my office out, papers I have and certain papers in certain areas, but who would ever have secured classified documents in the same area as your general correspondence would be? That doesn't make sense to me at all.
So it sounds like he's saying he doesn't take it seriously at all, right? Joe Biden has these documents just in his filing cabinet. So he doesn't take him seriously, has no idea how he got him out, would like to figure out how, says there's no checks and balances. Is he going to run again? I don't know. Stuff keeps coming out every day.
It does cast a cloud over it, you think?
It casts a cloud over the whole process. Saying that one person's more guilty than the other, I think the smart thing that was done here is Merrick Garland has special counsel. Let the special counsel do their job, and I think they will do a very good job, very thorough job, but hopefully give us a remedy of how we can prevent this from ever happening.
That is a tough clip there from Manchin. So he is explaining that he's got some serious concerns about this. And of course, we will continue to follow. That is Joe Manchin, and he is responding to the White House document scandal. Of course, there'll be a lot more to cover on that one, and we will continue to cover it. That is Jordan versus Todd. And we hope that you join us as we continue to cover the Biden document scandal. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. We have one final segment to attend to, everybody. We're going to dig into some letters now, and let's do it right now. It's go time for Jim Jordan. He sent out 5 letters. He's the leader of the GOP House Judiciary Committee. And look who he is writing to. Our friend Timothy Thibault, ex-FBI, the assistant special agent in charge out of the Washington field office. He also sent a letter over to singing Nina Jankowicz, the former candidate for the Disinformation Governance Board, and as well as some other people from the National School Board Association and the FBI. But first, let's start off with the announcement, because it was a good one from the House Judiciary GOP. If we go over to Twitter, we'll see that they posted the following on January 27, 2023. Breaking: Jim Jordan just sent letters to Timothy Thibault, Nina Janke, Jennifer Moore, Chip Slavin, and Viola, reiterating transcribed interview requests related to various investigations and oversight efforts. Look what he says here. Compulsory process next. That means subpoenas are coming in hot. He put letters to all 5 of them there. They are short. We will take a quick look at them, starting one by one. But let's take a look at Mr. Thibault first. Now, you know him. He's very involved in a lot of the stories that we've covered. He's no longer at the FBI. As soon as the Republicans won the House of Representatives, he started his way out. He's like, I better get out of here before this oversight starts. But before he left, Senator Kennedy was asking Christopher Wray about this. Actually, after he left, Christopher Wray was being asked about this by Senator Kennedy. Who is Tim Thibault?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Director, who is Timothy Thibault?
Mr. Thibault was, for some period of time until relatively recently, what's called an ASAC in our Washington field office.
He was the assistant special agent in charge?
That's what ASAC stands for. There's a whole number of them in the Washington field office. The structure is there's at the head of the office, and then there's SACs, and then the next level down, there's the level that he was at.
And he has or had been with the FBI about 25 years. Is that right?
Well, now you're testing my knowledge a little bit.
Okay. He was a powerful guy. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
He was a powerful guy. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know that I would use that description.
Okay. He had no power?
I think every law enforcement agent in the FBI with the responsibilities they're entrusted with has significant power.
Okay. Did he work on the President Trump Russian collusion investigation?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Not that I'm aware of, but I can't say that with certainty.
Complicated question.
Did he or does he work on the FBI investigation of Mr. Hunter Biden?
So the investigation that you're referring to, and I have to be a little bit careful because we're talking about an ongoing investigation, is being run out of our Baltimore field office, working with the Delaware U.S. Attorney, who's a holdover from the prior administration.
So I'm confused, Chris, with your answer. Did he work or does he work on the Hunter Biden investigation?
Come on, Chris, come on.
As I said, the Hunter Biden investigation is being run out of the Baltimore field office.
Okay. So that means no, because he's out of the Washington office, right? So can you just say no?
Isn't it true that in September of 2020, Special Agent Thibault went on social media and liked a Washington Post article entitled, quote, "William Barr has gone rogue"?
I have seen descriptions to that effect. I have to be a little bit careful about how far we can go in this conversation.
Why?
Because of
It's one of your
specific
ex-agents.
ongoing personnel matters.
Yeah, but he left already. He doesn't work for you anymore. This is a senator who has questions oversight about your intelligence agency.
Isn't it true that also in September of 2020, Special Agent Thibault went on social media and posted a Washington Post article entitled, quote, "Why the Michael Flynn case still matters"?
A similar answer to the one.
Ongoing personnel. Okay, you get the gist of it. Now, that is the guy we're talking about, right? He's very, very sneaky FBI agent, all wrapped up in nefariousness indeed. But he's getting a letter courtesy of our friend Jim Jordan. It's coming in hot, and here's what it says. Let's take a quick look at it. Written on January 27, 2023, coming out from Jim Jordan from Ohio, Chairman, Committee on the Judiciary, Congress of the United States, House of Representatives. It says, Dear Mr. Thibault, courtesy of your lawyers, and it says, all right, listen, Tim, we have made multiple requests that you appear for a transcribed interview before the committee concerning serious allegations of abuse and misconduct within the senior leadership of the DOJ and the FBI. Your testimony is necessary to further our oversight. And as we begin the 118th Congress, we write again to reiterate our outstanding request and ask that you immediately cooperate. Jim says, you have been on notice, Timmy, about our request for your testimony and aware that this request is outstanding for months. For your convenience, we have attached the letters dated September 23rd, October 14th, November 25th of last year. To date, you have not complied with our request that you appear for a transcribed interview before this committee. This obstruction must stop. Accordingly, we reiterate our request that you appear promptly for a transcribed interview. We also reiterate that this committee is prepared to resort to compulsory process, subpoena, baby, if necessary to obtain your testimony. Please direct your attorney to promptly contact us on your behalf. And by the way, our Judiciary Committee has oversight jurisdiction over DOJ and FBI pursuant to the rules. Very sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. Perfect. Now, what's so beautiful about this is that he also copied his prior letters. So this was the one from last year in September, which I'm sure we read through back in probably September of last year. And he sent the other ones too from October and the one before that in November or after that, rather. And you can see all of these letters went over to Tim Thibault. Now, up until this point, Timmy didn't have much to fear because the Republicans weren't in control of anything. And so last we learned that he was not going to be cooperating. In fact, this article came out over from this website called the New York Post. It says former FBI agent Tim Thibault refuses to cooperate with the House GOP. Now, this was back in October 15, 2022. Something has changed in that time. The Republicans are now in control. Previously, his lawyer said that concerning the request for the interview, right, because Jim sent these letters last year, they said previously, concerning the request for an interview, because the subject matter pertains to sensitive law enforcement investigations and information, our client is not in a position to accept this invitation at this juncture, okay, to accept this invitation. Well, it may have been an invitation last year, but evidently it's not going to be an invitation this time. They said our client is now retired from the FBI, very conveniently. As such, he is no longer in possession of an FBI laptop or mobile device, doesn't have any access to any other materials. And so, man, he doesn't have anything useful to say. He's facing scrutiny from Republicans because he suppressed, allegedly, the Hunter Biden investigation. They said last year, well, we'll just have to subpoena him this time. And that is exactly what they are doing. So they are going after Thibault. They're going after another person named Jennifer Leigh Moore. And we'll just take a quick look at her letter just so you can see what they're asking her for. Very short. She is another FBI agent. So Jennifer Leigh Moore also got a letter, and a little bit about her. She is the Assistant Director, Security Division out of DCHQ, Special Agent in charge of intelligence. Started back there in 1995, so she's an FBI lifer. Oh, gosh. Lifer there. Now let's learn more about the letter to her. They write to her, they say, all right, Jennifer, we've made multiple requests for you to show up here to talk about your misconduct. You've been on notice for a long time. We're going to subpoena you if you don't comply. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. And this is about the purge. Wow, okay. So whistleblower disclosures and a purge of employees. That's what she's getting asked about. That will be a fun one as well. So letters are going out from Jim Jordan to the FBI, but the FBI is not alone. Jim Jordan also wants to hear from Nina Singin' Janky Jankowicz, which unfortunately we are going to have to listen to her song here in a minute. And it's a singing song about disinformation. And so I want to make sure that everybody is properly fortified before we listen to this program. So make sure you get your survival food to survive this, because a food shortage could be coming. Even here in the United States, we have drought, inflation. We've got new policies pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits ever. This is not ordinary survival food. It's good for 25 years. Super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. Compact, sturdy, water-resistant kits stack easily. Different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes, just adding boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to save 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including a 3-month survival kit. Looks just like this. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on anything over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. And you can go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert, and start creating your own survival food stockpile today. Code Robert, 10% off at 4patriots.com. All right, my friends. Now, it is time to brace yourself for impact. Now that you've got your survival food ordered, now that you've got your field of greens situated and your gold stacked up, it's time. This, my friends, is Singin' Janky.
Information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote. Oh!
So this is the point of the show. We're going to say we're kidding. We're making all of this up.
Tucker Carlson. All right, America. There it is. That's Singin' Janky Janky. Singin' Janky Jankowicz. Sorry, everybody. Oh, man. Well, she got a letter. The good news is she got a letter about this. Jim Jordan sent her one. He's not happy with her either. Here is what that letter says. From the House of Representatives Committee on the Judiciary, Jim Jordan sends a letter over to Nina Singin' Janky Jankowicz, telling her to please stop singing for the love of God. He says, okay, dear Mrs. Janky, we have made several requests for you to delete all of your music. Just kidding. We have made several requests for your documents and for information related to the so-called Disinformation Governance Board within the Department of Homeland Security and your role as the board's executive director. These requests to include your appearance for the transcribed interview before the committee remain outstanding, Nina. These documents and your testimony are necessary to further our oversight. And as we begin this new Congress, we write again, immediately asking you to comply in full. You've been on notice for a long time. We sent you a bunch of letters last year in May and December. And although your attorney has belatedly contacted the committee and our requests are still outstanding, accordingly, we reiterate our requests, promptly asking you to comply. Otherwise, compulsory process, if necessary, will be coming. We are authorized to investigate all of this. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. Going over to Nina Jankowicz. And so we'll see what her lawyers say about all of that in their response. But our last two letters went out to the national school boards. And remember, the national school boards were very upset that Americans were upset about how their kids were being treated in schools. Weird how parents might be concerned about that, but they were. And we're going to listen to two people who got letters from Jim Jordan. One of them is this fella named Chip Slavin. You see him right here. And apparently he's an education leader. He's an equity champion, as well as a licensed attorney. Wow. All right, so let's go in and see what Viola M. Garcia is all about. She is the National School Boards Association president, and she was on with CNN talking about those outrageous parents who were caring about their kids a little too much.
We need support. We need reinforcement of the sort that the community can give us. But more importantly, these are real threats, Brianna, that you just saw, that we all just saw. And they're occurring with greater frequency. So our letter to the White House really is indicative of the seriousness of the situation for school board members, but more especially for students in our public schools.
Terrorist parents who cared about their kids and their education. Well, they got a letter, and so did Chip Slavin. Chip Slavin is another person who is an education leader and an equity champion. So let's take a look at these two very interesting letters. First one goes out to Dr. Viola Garcia, the National Assessment Governance Board. Jim Jordan says, all right, dear doctor, we have requested you appear for a number of different meetings. There are concerning and troubling attempts by the DOJ and the White House to use the heavy hand of federal law enforcement to target concerned parents at local school board meetings and chill their First Amendment rights. These requests include your appearance for a transcribed interview, and we're reiterating our request. You've known about these for over 14 months. We sent a prior letter last year in November. You have not complied. This obstruction must stop. If you do not schedule your interview, there will be further problems. We have the jurisdiction to investigate all of this. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. Now, here is a little bit more about this. On September 29th, on behalf of the NSBA, you and Chip Slavin sent a letter to Joe Biden asking for help. You stated that parents were acting with malice, violence, and threats against school officials. You cited the Patriot Act as a statute that the Biden administration could use to stop domestic terrorism and hate crimes from parents. The NSBA board members explained that they'd been engaged with the White House for several weeks now and said that there was a disturbing increase of violence. They regret and apologize the letter after the fact. And so they want more information about that letter. What a scandal that was. And so our last letter went over to Chip Slavin, Equity Senior Super Advisor. Says, from Mr. Chip Slavin, former interim director, National School Boards. Same thing to him. They said, all right, Chip, we've asked for you to come in and talk about that letter for over 14 months. You also have not shown up. There will be problems. We are prepared to resort to compulsory process if necessary there, buddy boy. So get back to us soon. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. And this is, of course, the final letter that went out from Jim Jordan. And there is just a lot more to come. I'm certain of it. From the Oversight Committee, from the Judiciary Committee, there will be a lot more to come. And because I know you guys want it so badly. And Zulu is confirming this for me. He says confidently, I can speak for the entire YouTube and the locals chat when I say that we need to hear the song again. And I agree with you. I noticed that too, Zulu. It was a very common theme all across the tubes. We might as well do it, my friends.
Information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. She was almost in charge of the Disinformation Governance Board. All right. That was a real thing from the Department of Homeland Security. They brought her in and started to interview her to govern us all of our speech, man. Oh no. All right. No, we're not going to do another. Yeah, Jake, we already lost a few thousand subscribers on that one. So farewell, everybody. Bon voyage. We had to do it. I'll miss you. Hopefully you come back. All right. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We covered a lot of ground here. We talked about Jim Jordan going into go time and him going out hard against all of these very nefarious actors. We can't wait to see what he is able to uncover. We also unpacked some more updates about the Biden documents, which are going to continue to develop. And we learned a lot about Twitter files and Hamilton 68 and Twitter files 15. But of course, now let's turn our attention over to you, my friends, and see if we can earn back some of those subscriptions. I mean, my goodness, yeah, a lot of people unsubbed. We're out of here. We're done. I'm sorry, everybody. I still love you. Hopefully you still love me back. All right, so let's see. I think we had a super chat or two come in. I definitely saw Zulus. I think we had one or two others come in. Thank you very much for the donos. We had the first one from Fred Petamontes here. His dog is back. He says, Robert, I let my dog out to pee. After 45 minutes, I went out and I found him in a 1967 Corvette with Hunter Biden. Oh my gosh. What am I going to do with this dog? Man, you are in a predicament there, Fred. Fred Petamonte and his dog. Did he have his nieces there too? Oh gosh. Is he? Oh gosh. You might want to check the trunk in there. I'm not sure. If Hunter had his nieces, you might want to check the trunk or wherever they were going. Your dog might be into some pretty tricky situation over there. So good. But although he's found himself in trickier situations, Fred's very good boy, by the way. He's found confidential documents, is buying like $25,000 in gold, is outstanding. Very smart fella. Look at him. Very handsome too. Look at this handsome boy. All right. So good luck to him. Maybe let me know if he needs a lawyer, to move some confidential documents. Good to see you, Fred. Voice of the People says, dear God, not the song, please. For the love of God, don't. Sorry. We already did it twice, man. We already did it twice. Voice of the People. Zulu is here. I can confidently speak for the entire YouTube and locals chat. One mo again. Voice of the People says, damn it, Robert. Uh-oh. We had another one come in from Encore, from random person. He says Encore. Uh-oh. Well, let's go on over to the Rumble chat and say hello to our Rumble friends, first of all. Janek says, Rob, if a letter comes to them and they don't have to comply, but a subpoena, they have to. So, yeah, what I would basically say, Janek, is the Republicans should follow the same strategy as the Democrats did, like the J6 committee did. If, like Bannon, right, didn't comply with a subpoena, they referred it over to the DOJ. The DOJ prosecuted. Should be the same thing. Send a subpoena, don't comply, send it over to the DOJ, see if the DOJ prosecutes it. That's what I think should happen. Janek is over there. Adesia, 1999. Peter Tegg is in the house. Walk 2 here. We've got a great Rumble community over there with Seth Covington, Sedona Rocks. We appreciate our Rumble friends. Thank you guys for watching us over there on Rumble. We also are going to jump over to our Twitter friends and say hello to you. And so if you're not following us over on Twitter, it's kind of out of control over there, but sometimes we get like a dozen people watching on Twitter. In fact, we're 30% of the way there. We've got 4 viewers over there on Twitter. You can see it's out of control. Let's check some of the comments over here and say hello to our friends. Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. We've got some serious meme action going on over here. So these are always just a trip. All right, so here we have our first one in the house is from Paul Mino. He says, will political revenge be a theme or an agenda? Episode 6 featuring Trump. Revenge. Make America great again. Yeah, it's a good question, Paul. Trump is not going to be happy. And he'll be coming hard. We're looking forward to it. Paul Mino says, help me, senpai, or I make girthless girly memes. Sleepy Dog Lee has less than 100 subs on Twitter. Sad. Yeah, everybody should definitely be following Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter. Oh my gosh, he's at 99 followers, by the way. All right, so go over there and follow Sleepy Dog. He's at 99. Get him over that 100. If you're not following Sleepy Dog, you should. He is a masterful meme smith here on our channel. He says, Rob, I've noticed that a meme army has begun building on your locals. Here's one from Jigam Geegum. Good. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. Look at the face. Oh my gosh, that is too funny. All right, so that's amazing. Paul, I noticed that, by the way. Did you notice this? Look, so I didn't even have to check this out. So we're thanking our meme smiths now. We have a whole meme smith section here. And look who's on there. Twitter at Sleepy Dog Lee and locals at Jigam Geegum on our meme smith tab on our locals, on our mind map now. And so we're going to have to find, probably some memes, right? Like if you want a meme, like, meme yourself and let's get a meme up on here. And, if you're a mod and you want to want to link a channel or something, let's spread the love a little bit on these mind maps, let's grow some of these accounts. Let's grow some accounts, man. I'd love to do that. So thank you for that, Jigam Geegum. That's hysterical. It's actually really well done. You've got multiple facial features. You've got multiple expressions in there. Oh man, that's pretty good. Man, I wish I was that cool. And look at those biceps, man. Man, I'm not that good. I wish. All right, I got some more work to do. Rebecca John is in here sharing this fella. Kind of looks like Val Kilmer, no? Is that Val Kilmer? Thank you. CA Human is here. Says, I made it. Oh, and I forgot. We always have to remember to like the content that we see because sometimes we get a little scrolly and we forget to like. We start doom scrolling and get carried away and we forget to like. Thank you, Rebecca, for that one. CA Human is here. Danny McWilliams says, if Democrat wins, Elon Musk will be forced out of Twitter. Freedom of speech will be gone. I hope not. Hopefully Elon is here to stay for a while. Jay Adams was here, says, I'm here. I was number 20 out of control, Jay Adams. Thank you for being here. Dragon says, I really need a notification for live streams. And he's asking Mr. Beast about that. Well, if Mr. Beast can fix that, hopefully he can. Here, Sergeant Mayo says, get in, loser. We're stealing classified documents from Joe Biden. And we had another one from TJ. TJ is sharing this one where you see people ignoring Joe Biden and taking photos with Trump. Good to see you, TJ, with several other posts over there on Twitter. And of course, come and follow us over at Rob Govea, ESQ on Twitter, and all of the other Watcher community friends, everybody else who's posting on there. It's a good place to connect with everybody. And so thank you for the tremendous memes and the tremendous comments. But that, my friends, I believe is it for us on the day. Let's check in over here. We had a couple locals tips that came in, which is always very generous. And so we always like to hit those as well. If I can do a refresh on the screen and see them. All right, our locals chat. We had 2 of them in the house. Shout out to Patricia. Says, Disinformation Poppins should have mentioned Schiff's and Schumer's lies and disinfo in her horrendous song. Yeah, she should have definitely done that. She didn't. Right? Did she mention Hamilton 68? Did she mention the FBI sending messages over to all the big tech platforms censoring people for election jokes? Like, was that in it? John Allen says, I wonder if is now making a song about herself. That's one I'll listen to. Yeah, they get to define what misinfo is and disinfo is. And then the rest of us have to just allegedly fall in the line and comply. Not on my watch, buddy boy. All right, so Jankowicz is not going to be governing us for now, but I'm sure they're still working on a counter plan on that. So stay vigilant, my friends. But that is it for us on the day. And so I want to thank everybody who was a part of this broadcast for being here with us today. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our standard after party. And so if you'd like to come and join us over there, come check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to hang out over there for a little bit, go through some additional comments, and have some fun. I want to thank our sponsors of the show. If you haven't already and you need some survival food, survival gear, go on over to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert. Save 10% off your first purchase. Get a solar generator and other things. Or you can check out Goldco, where you can protect your retirement, your savings with gold and silver. Go to robertlikesgold.com. Always buy gold. It's always a good thing. We also have Brickhouse Nutrition at brickhousenutrition.com. You can get your Field of Greens. Ton of other amazing things on there as well, right? The whole menu of options. And you can save 15% with code Robert at fieldofgreens.com. Get your vitamins, get your fruit, be healthy, and be ultra vibrant. We like to be healthy here. We also want to thank our law firm, of course, our R&R Law Group. If you know anybody in the state of Arizona who has been charged with crimes, our office can help. 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com is where you can find us. Thank you to the mods who mod down the fort for us and keep things nice and orderly in the chat. Big shout outs to Vienticus Prime. K-Bean, I see, is back. K-Bean, we missed you. Don't do that again to us. Scared us. I'm glad you're back. Hopefully you are doing very well. We missed you. Just Cause is here. We're still looking for Lean. Hopefully Lean's doing well. Playing hooky, Ronnie Cole, I see in the chat. We've got Zulu, who swings by from time to time and is here right now, along with the big encore request. Also, thank you to our meme smiths. We've got Sleepy Dog Lee, you can follow on Twitter, and our friend Gigum is she's on Locals here on our Locals platform, and so come and check us out there as well. But that, my friends, is going to be it for us right after we just play that one more time. I mean, what the heck? Just to do it on the way out.
Information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious.
Bum bada bum bada bum 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 bum.
It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared that intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote.
Oh, all right, everybody. And that is it for us on the day. And so we are going to leave it there. We're going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party. But I hope you have a very beautiful night. If I don't see you there, hopefully you come back here tomorrow so that we can do this all again. We're going to have a lot of news to get to and business to attend to. And I hope to see you there so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.